Is that apparently Sony wants to take their games off of Steam. That there's been
Yeah,
this
PlayStation 5
multi-platform
exclusive,
strategy
baby.
going on with
Number
a lot
one
of the
in
big
the
console
hood,
makers, right?
G.
Xbox games are coming to
Let's
PlayStation.
go.
We see a lot of stuff. We
Pony
see
up,
some
pony
companies
up,
that
pony
did have exclusivity
up.
contracts. Now they're putting stuff on multiple platforms.
That's right.
This feels different. Sony was at least testing the waters of putting their
here we go.
big stuff.
Stop with
Spider-Man
the
and God of War,
excuses,
putting it
Jimmy.
onto PC.
Stop
And
with
it
the
sounds like
excuses,
it went
Jimmy.
really bad. Really bad, in fact.
It went so bad that Sony decided to put their games on PC in the first place. And the funny thing is, it was so bad that Helldivers 2 was more successful on PC than even your own console. Matter of fact, let's also talk about the fact that the reason as to why Sony might potentially be pulling their games from Steam has more to do with the fact that they're afraid of the new Xbox madness. That's exactly what it is. Because if you're putting games on Steam and those games would be accessible through the new Xbox PC, then people would wonder and say, hold on, I don't need a PlayStation 6. I would rather buy that instead. But the funny thing is, nobody cares about your exclusive games, no matter where they are. Nintendo, Xbox, and PC. That's why you're saying that, it just didn't do very well. You know why? Because nobody cares about your games, not even your own audience. You guys prefer to play Nintendo and Xbox games. And regardless if Sony goes back to this whole exclusivity strategy, well, we're going to start seeing more studio closures like Blue Point Studios because you cannot survive making AAA games in today's gaming demographic with games like GTA 6 on the horizon, as well as all these other third-party offerings. So if that's what Sony's going to do, you're going to allow Microsoft with their Xbox Play Anywhere strategy, and they're going to completely take over the whole gaming industry. What about China Hero Project and Nix's, the people that they purchased so they could port games to other platforms? Oh, I guess that was a complete waste of money. They might as well shut down their studio too. Man, at this point, Sony don't know what they're doing. They think this is sounding good on paper, but in reality, they're just trying to prepare themselves for the PlayStation 6 because they know that if they drop those games on Steam, then those games will also be available on the Xbox ecosystem. And that's all. And I told you, games to win another W. This is what it's always been about with these ponies. But regardless, the games that are still available there will also be played on the Xbox. So maybe in regards to future titles, but the games that Sony have already ported, well, guess what? Those will potentially be used on the new Xbox. I mean, it's crazy. You guys said the Xbox ROG Ally was a failure, but have you noticed that the closer and closer that we get to this new Xbox Magnus, now we're starting to hear Sony talk about we pulling out exclusives. The Steam machine came out. They're like, hold on, we got some competition going on. We got to pull back our exclusives, but yet nobody cares about your games. That's what you guys don't understand. Maybe you got a few titles that people like Helldivers 2 as an example. But in regards to the rest of your library, nobody cares about your games. So if Sony think that this is some form of a W, well, expect more studio closures in the honor of PlayStation, like all the other franchises that you guys had before. Did exclusivity help Killzone and Resistance stay alive? I don't think so. Those games flopped and failed. So Sony could decide to push this whole multiplayer strategy with these games being multiplat for the most part. But at the end of the day, Sony was making $2 billion off PC just for having their games on there. They weren't getting that on PlayStation. Most of that money that you see that PlayStation is getting is from 30% of all the stuff that they got within their PlayStation Store. Memberships, Fortnite skins, Roblox. That's where the vast majority of Sony's income and money is coming from. So the fact that they made $2 billion just by porting some old games they had on PlayStation, that was a huge W for Sony.
There is a new big report that just came out from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg saying that apparently this was hurting the console permanently. The games weren't even selling on PC, apparently.
They're not even selling on your own console. Look at Cold Violet. Look at Returnal. The game barely even eclipsed 2 million. Now, mind you, due to the budget of the game was successful. Astrobot, 1.5 million. Ain't nobody buying these games on PlayStation. They're not even buying them on your own console. At this point, Sony's thinking like, yo, we don't know what to do. Because if we port these games to PC, which we're getting this extra money and revenue, well, guess what? Then Microsoft's going to have more of a reason why people would buy that platform over our own. And what they want to see, the problem is with Sony, they want to be able to, at least, they don't care if you play any of their games. They want to be able to maintain that ecosystem. They cannot afford for their PlayStation 5 owners to buy the new Xbox, knowing that those games was going to be ported over. They know that. So Sony doubled back and said, okay, we got to find a way to differentiate ourselves. So maybe let's go back to the exclusive strategy. Now, to some people, fanboys alike, y'all will think, well, that's good. That means Sony's going to try to be like Nintendo and build up their identity. But see, the problem is you're not Nintendo. Nobody cares about your games. People will pick up tens of millions of copies of Fire Red, even though it's nothing but a recycled virtual console game, in comparison to a game that you guys got making. Sony needs the multi-platform strategy, especially with how expensive gaming is getting. That's the reason why most companies started doing it. You get what I mean? But they don't want to hear that. Oh, but, they can cope all they want when they're back to exclusive. Well, understand that with that exclusivity, expect more studio closures to come with it.
It's multifaceted. Now, I just want to put in my 2 cents before we break down the news and the tons of reactions, because people are actually straight up mad about this, but
there's nobody mad. Your games have no substantial value within the gaming industry. The only game you had, Helldivers 2, that was it. Xbox gamers, you got a few games at Xbox. You've already ported the games that most Xbox gamers wanted to play. Spider-Man, so they'll enjoy that on their new Xbox PC. You've already gave the community what the games that they actually wanted to play. Intergalactic, I don't hear nobody saying they want to play that. Wolverine, maybe 50-50 with that one. But like I said, nobody's really caring about the rest of the titles that you might as well call the game Sorry. Nobody cares, bro. And we know they don't care because nobody's even picking these games up even on your own platform. While your studios keep closing down and your games keep getting canceled, you want to tell people it's exclusive. Exclusive is the reason why Sony is the way. No, it's third party. It even said it in the last video when it says the moneymaker is getting that 30% profit margin on every single of those DLCs and microtransactions. And membership fees. That's where Sony's getting their money.
I'm still very much in the camp that exclusives matter. Like, if you're a console manufacturer,
they mattered so much that Blue Point Studios got closed down.
You're trying to get people to specifically buy a PlayStation 5, or if you're trying to get people to buy an Xbox Series X, or of course something like a Nintendo Switch. If I want to play Pokemon, well, I have to have a Nintendo Switch.
No, you don't. You can play that through an emulator on a phone. You could probably play it through a calculator. I don't need Nintendo to play that game. I can play that game through a ROM, through anything. What are you talking about? I don't need Nintendo for that.
Have to actually buy this thing. I may not be happy with the price tag.
I don't have to buy a Switch 2 to play that game.
Some features, but if I want to play those games, I have to get that platform.
No, you don't. I mean, you can emulate that on your phone like it's nothing.
I think exclusives, whether you like them, whether you hate them, I still think they are very important to selling systems. So to me, this does make sense. But let's take a look at the rationale of Sony, because it sounds like they're more vengeful.
Exclusive cell system return at 1 million cells. Exclusive cell systems at Astro's Playroom was available on 92 million PS5s, but yet only 1.5 million people bought the game. Sony really thought let's do a Mario bundling game like how Nintendo did back in the days, and we'll popularize Astrobot like how Nintendo did Mario. And as you can see, it did not work. 92 million people got Astro's Playroom, and yet only 1% of the audience even played the game, even though it was a free tech demo, which was actually not that bad, in my personal opinion. But did any of these guys buy the sequel? They didn't. They didn't. But then you got Jeff Keighley doing questionable things to get the game of the year award. Just like he said, Highguard, look at Highguard, this game, and look what happened. The game's gonna get closed in 45 days. And Marathon's probably lined up. I mean, this is crazy, man. We're in the Concordian timeline, man. You got these games coming out, and they can't even last 2 months before even getting closed down.
Imagine. It sounds like they're actually even canceling the games that are currently almost done for PC and just saying scrap it.
I don't even think they're canceling them. I think they'll pop up whenever they see fit. I don't think they're completely throwing that away. You're stupid if you think that. If Sony does decide to do that, that is because they're looking at the competition in the market of what's going on. They know that Microsoft is playing the trump card with Steam available on their new platform. So obviously, they got to be like, okay, we can't just put these games here, because if we do, people will wait just 6 months and pick these games. At this point, the Xbox would be a better platform. It would be a far better platform. Why would you buy a PlayStation 6 if you could play these PlayStation and Xbox games with the Game Pass Ultimate, with all these features and benefits on the Xbox. That's the reason why Sony is literally afraid. It's so funny. We're winning the console war, but yet for some reason Sony is so afraid of this new platform. They're looking at it like, this might be another 360 situation. Operation Xbox 360 again. We gotta be careful here, Jimmy. We might got an Xbox 360 situation. Xbox might be doing a 360 this time around.
Let's get into it. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could please give this video a like and subscribe. We'll still have multi-platform games. Some stuff like their live service. Marathon, MOVA, or Marvel's Tokon, which is obviously that upcoming sort of fighting game they're working on and stuff like that. This kind of stuff very much is built on the community, is on, hey, we need seasons of players filling up servers, basically doing microtransactions and stuff. The live service stuff will still be multi-platform, but I almost think that even that kind of stuff is probably going to be PC multi-platform. I just can't imagine those games are going to be coming to Xbox. I mean, down the line, right?
Wait, what are you talking about, Marathon? I don't think none of those games are going to come. They already on Xbox. What do you know what, man? So Marathon's not on Xbox? I can see Marvel Token, whatever you want to call it, that is also coming to Xbox. I hope it comes to Switch too as well. That would be a nice game for the Switch too. But you're saying that, I don't think none of these games will go to Xbox, while literally Marathon came. You know what? Let me hear this.
Multi-platform. But I almost think that even that kind of stuff is probably going to be PC multi-platform. I just can't imagine those games are going to be coming to Xbox.
While they're on Xbox.
I mean, down the line, right? Here's the other thing, though.
Down the line.
Games will still be released on multiple platforms. Single-player games like Ghost of Yotei and Cyrus will remain a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Now, they said straight up that it's two separate things at once. Games like Cyrus and Ghost of Yotei will stay PS5 exclusive, even though apparently these were pretty much ready to go. There have been some leaks that Cyrus and Ghost of Yotei, I think Ghost of Yotei was already even announced for PC.
So Microsoft came in and messed up Sony's strategy. You see? See, y'all don't get it, man. Microsoft is putting Sony in the corner. This doesn't show like a dominant company. You're like, what? You games to see? You don't make no sense. That just shows you that Sony has an identity. No, because they went back on something that they originally had plans on because they're afraid of the Xbox madness. That to me shows no confidence. That shows no confidence. That shows you that you're about to lose the whole gaming industry because you're afraid about your pathetic old identity, which nobody even cares, bro. You're not Nintendo, bro. Stop it. You're not Nintendo. Even not all Nintendo games do well. Only a very select few of titles. This, at the end of the day, this was a back burner for Sony to help fund a lot of the games that they got coming to PlayStation. Now they're completely shut it out. You just let Microsoft come in and it's gonna dominate Steam and it's gonna dominate. And you notice Microsoft's even putting games on Nintendo. They don't care. I'm hearing that Forza Horizon is gonna be ported to the Switch too. So, and all these other games which y'all seen. So that shows you Microsoft is coming for the complete takeover of the gaming industry. Like I've said before, Nintendo, Microsoft games are charting. And Nintendo games will too. But they'll chart together. Steam, Xbox games will be charting. None of your games will. Your own platform, Xbox games going to be charting. Third-party games are going to be charting. PlayStation games ain't going to be charting. Your games are going to be at the back burner. That's where your games are going to be, at the back burner. So that shows you through when Phil Spencer said everything's an Xbox, I think he really meant it. Because if I'm buying a PS5 to play Xbox games, that's an Xbox. If I'm playing Xbox games on Switch 2, let it be through Indiana Jones or the new Forza being ported to it, then yes, I'm not saying it's an Xbox in the name of it, but in a way, I'm using it like an Xbox. I'm playing their games over my competitors' own titles. Like I said, Operation Trojan Horse has been completed, and yet PlayStation Studios will be depleting. And we already know that. Because look at Blue Point Studios.
I guess Sony starts to realize, all right, that sort of joking does hurt a system. Now, some of y'all may be too young to remember this, but Sony released a system called the PlayStation Portable. The PSP way back in the day, extremely fun device. I was obsessed with the PSP. I think I still have one on my desk somewhere here, but the PSP had the bad sort of stink on it of PSP got no games. In fact, it had a ton of them. But
you mean PS Vita?
Just because everybody kept saying it's got no games.
PSP Ain't nobody, man. What you talk? PSP got no games? What? I ain't never heard that before. PSP got no games? You mean PS Vita? And even then, PS Vita got more games than y'all ever had on PlayStation 5.
Basically killed the console. Basically, people didn't want to.
You gotta be talking about the Vita. He can't be PSP. Bro, the PSP just sold just as good as the DS.
Because even though it did have a huge set of amazing games, both ports and originals, a lot of people just didn't want to buy a system where everybody's saying it's got no games. And people
He gotta be talking about the Vita.
Saying that about Sony of, oh, we don't even care, go ahead and skip PC. So they are, because they want to really get people back on track of, yes, we do have games, maybe not as many as PlayStation 4, but please still buy a PlayStation 5. It's clear that this is a very sudden and significant change within PlayStation. The fact they decided to cancel Ghost of Yotei and Sorrow's PC
Just
port.
because they decide to delay it doesn't necessarily mean they canceled it. We don't know if the game will pop up eventually. I think as of right now, Sony's trying to read the room. Right? They're trying to see what Xbox is doing, because if you notice, ever since those articles and we already know this. We've been knowing this for a long time, that the new Xbox is going to have Steam. Of course, Sony's going to be a little bit hesitant in porting their games over, because that right there is detrimental. And Microsoft did that on purpose, because they're saying, you can't get no money. We're going to come in and put our games on your service, on everything else, and we're going to monopolize everything. And that's what's going to happen. Microsoft is essentially gatekeeping you into a wall to where you're eventually going to have to cave in. That is what's happening, because the whole China Hero project, they can't really sell PlayStations like they do in China. The only reason how they were able to capitalize on that market was through PC gaming, right? That's how they were going to be able to do that. You can't money hat a game if the game's going to be on Steam and then be available on Xbox. That's another argument. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. Sony's like, damn, we got to actually rethink everything. Microsoft is playing chess and PlayStation is playing checkers. You're not reading the room. And at the end of the day, you guys can keep telling people that we got high quality exclusives, but yet you're going to need the casuals to be able to show that and indicate that. Because like I said, game studios like Blue Point Studios, exclusive or not, failed. So I'm just saying.
It's very telling. Someone inside of Sony decided it's time to go back to what they've done it for 4 generations straight. And this really is the big, huge thing, right? Which is that historically, especially back on like the original PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, a lot of times people made stuff on PlayStation exclusive, not even for contractual reasons. A lot of times it was just such a hot seller. Things just sold so fast, so instant. Other people are putting games on PC, and they're selling better than ever. Capcom says 50% of its sales are from PC.
Woo! And like I've said before, that's what I'm saying. That's in between Switch 1 and 2, Xbox One and Series X and S, and PS4 and 5. Capcom is making 50% of its sales from PC. From PC. All the consoles together, and Capcom is still making 50% more on PC than they're doing on console. That is embarrassing. That just shows you that the console market is filled with a bunch of casuals, and the real hardcore have jumped on PC.
They accept that number to increase.
Wow.
So this is a huge number. I mean, just today they actually announced that the Resident Evil Requiem has already sold 5 million copies. So it is weird to think that 2.5 million of that, roughly, is probably coming to PC. That's a huge, huge number. So some people are saying, okay, if this has only been on PlayStation, on Nintendo Switch, if it had been on Xbox, that would have sold 2.5 million copies. People are sort of doing that
It would have sold worse, of course.
Third-party math and sort of...
Which is still kind of disappointing, because you got a 92 mil install base, and I mean, I like to look at things in perspective. Yes, it did well. Capcom's happy. 5 million in 5 days. Capcom's happy. Nobody's downplaying that. But let's really look at the logistics, though. It was on multiple platforms. Oh! You get what I'm saying? I've seen games on N64 sell about 7-8 mil. What blockbuster video? On only one system of a system install base of 32 mil. That to me is kind of embarrassing. I'm not saying it's not good. Not saying it. I know it's good. But my point stands is the fact that you got 92 million PS5s out there. about 30, 35, 40 Xbox Series S and X's out there. You got about 18, close to 20 million Nintendo Switch 2s if we're talking about Resident Evil 9. And you're telling me it only sold 5 million between all those devices? Including PC? That just shows you that gaming ain't really as grown as it. It has a market, nobody's saying it, but that means that gaming hasn't really grown like you people think.
Reverse engineering it to Sony.
It really hasn't.
Very obviously, these people are just wrong. I don't know how these tweets get so many likes. This is just such a apples and oranges entity. You know, back in the day, especially that PlayStation 2, that early Xbox era, or even Xbox 360 versus PlayStation 3, it was interesting that the different consoles almost had different focuses. Like the Xbox had a lot of really, really good shooters, but not a lot of RPGs, whereas the PlayStation 2 had tons of RPGs, but really a lot of its shooters, they weren't the best. It's interesting that there used to be this like sense of camp, whereas now the lines are so blurred. In a lot of ways, there really is just the PlayStation 5 at this point. Like, if you're looking for like a crazy next-gen graphics system, the PlayStation 5 is the place to go. And I just think that...
Well, hold on. According to who? You? Because according to Capcom, PC is the place to go. PC is the place where they're making the most money. What are you talking about? You're saying that, PlayStation 5 is the place to be. And you got Capcom saying that our games sell 50% higher on PC and are bound to sell higher in the future on PC. They said nothing about Sony. It's
interesting that we're in a spot.
You guys ain't nothing but NBA 2K players. That's all it is. Madden, college football, we all know it.
The console identity at this point has watered down to the point where it's basically just, do you want next-gen graphics, or are you fine with really good graphics that aren't battering, but, portable level graphics, right?
No games.
But I see a lot of people talking about Ghost of Yotei will not launch on PC anymore. Sony is changing its PC strategy for upcoming single-player games, while live service games will still be on PC. Look at just so many of these replies. I wouldn't mind Sony making first-party games. I bet they're at this point where they're like, okay, well, 93% of our money is coming from PlayStation. Is it really worth it to even bother going over there and liquidating our brand a bit?
It's not about that. It's the fact that if they put these games on Steam, Mr. Marvel Wolverine will be available on the Xbox PC. That's just all it is, man. And Sony don't want to give Microsoft that leadway to make their platform more appealing than the PlayStation one. So this does make logical sense. And Microsoft, even if you take those games away, they know they have backed you in the corner because they know you was loving that $2 billion. They know it. Well, guess who that $2 billion is going to? It's going to Microsoft instead. And that's why Microsoft is trying to take over the Switch market by putting their games on Switch. They know Nintendo ain't got no games. You don't think they say, Nintendo ain't got no games. Put Indiana Jones, put Forza, put Gears Reloaded. Nintendo got no games. Have you noticed that? Once Microsoft realized that these companies ain't got no games, and Nintendo ain't got no games, it's time to maximize that profit. Sony ain't got no competition for us. It's time to maximize on that profit. That's what's going on here. Y'all know competition to them. Y'all think, we're competition. We got 92 million. But 92 million of those people ain't buying it for these games, though. They're not buying it for Wolverine. So you're telling me that 92 million people bought a PS5 for this game right here? You know you're a damn liar. They bought it for third party. They bought it for Fortnite. That's what they bought your PS5 for. So using the hardware sales as a justification as to we're the best company while nobody's even buying this so-called quote-unquote exclusive that this company is even making shows you that you still stuck in the prehistoric era.
PlayStation no longer releasing games, single players, live service games. People actually said specifically, apparently Marvel's Wolverine is listed as one of those games they said, okay, this can never, ever, ever leave the PlayStation. Great news, let's go. Still not getting a fully beat and to fully play the entirety of our big single-player games like Spider-Man holding an Xbox controller on an Xbox. That's just going to make some normies sort of lose their mind. I think we are inside of like the hardcore gaming bubble, but...
Man, you're not hardcore. You're not hardcore. Because hardcore gamers have gave up a long time ago. That's why the industry is going down. They're done. We already gave up. We don't care, man. Like I said, grab the torch, let it burn before your feet, and there you go. We're done. We've already pulled out. We're not supporting these things. We don't care.
a lot of times I do get a chance to talk to like normies, people that are casual gamers, and they will say stuff that is so dumb sometimes it blows your mind. And I don't fault.
But are they really dumb? Are they dumb that Fortnite is more popular? That's not dumb. That's honesty. Oh, we don't like those games. That's dumb? How is that dumb? They're right. They clearly don't because they keep playing Fortnite. You're the dumb one. You want to sit there and call them dumb, Mr. Normie Man, but they're the ones that are smart. You're the dumb one. Because you still believe in an industry that cares about this garbage. You're the dumb one.